You know what they never tell you when you're chasing your dreams? That you're going to meet people who will test every ounce of your patience, people who will try to dim your light, doubt your worth, or just be impossible. But here's the truth: difficult people aren't roadblocks, they're teachers. Painful, exhausting, sometimes infuriating teachers, but teachers nonetheless. When I entered the entertainment industry, especially in the early days, I faced my fair share of difficult people. Some said I was too opinionated, others thought I was too ambitious, some were passive-aggressive, and others were just straight-up rude. And for a while I tried to please them. I bent over backwards. I watered myself down. Then I realized I wasn't born to fit into anyone's expectations, and neither were you. So let me share with you what I've learned. Difficult people show up in every industry, in every country, in every walk of life. You can't avoid them, but you can decide how you respond. You don't need to match their energy. You don't need to shrink. You don't need to fight fire with fire. What you need is clarity, boundaries, and self-respect. Sometimes silence is your greatest power. Sometimes it's choosing your peace over their drama. And sometimes it's walking away like the badass you are. Difficult people make you difficult. Let them remind you who you are and who you refuse to be. No matter where you go in life, whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, building your own business, working in creative spaces, just navigating your personal relationships, difficult people will find a way into your orbit. They come in all forms: the overly critical colleague, insecure manager who masks control as leadership, the friend who subtly undermines you, or even a family member who thrives on guilt and manipulation. We often try to outrun or avoid them, thinking we'll eventually land in a place where everyone is aligned with our values. But that's a fantasy. Human nature is complex, and navigating people who challenge us is part of every meaningful journey. You don't have to like it, but you do have to accept it. Because the moment you start believing that difficult people are a sign of failure or something to be ashamed of, you start doubting yourself. You think, maybe it's me, or worse, maybe I'm not cut out for this. That's exactly what you can't allow. Presence of difficult people isn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of life's messiness. Real life isn't a curated Instagram feed where everyone claps when you win. It's raw, unfiltered, and sometimes unkind. Here's what I've learned: the most successful, impactful people on the planet didn't get there by dodging difficult personalities. They got there by learning how to stand their ground when challenged, how to filter feedback without crumbling, and how to rise above toxicity without becoming toxic themselves. They didn't let difficult people shake their foundation. They used those interactions to sharpen their emotional intelligence, not shrink their confidence. Think of it like this: difficult people are not walls, they're tests. They're not there to stop you, they're there to check if you really know who you are. Will you cave when someone disrespects you? Will you fight every battle and drain yourself in the process? Or will you learn to pause, assess, and respond with strength, not just emotion? These moments don't define your worth, but they do reveal your resilience. And in the long run, that resilience is what will take you further than talent, connections, timing ever could. So instead of fearing difficult people or letting them destabilize your journey, start recognizing their role in your growth. They are not the end of the road, not even the biggest challenge you'll face. They're just part of the terrain. Predictable, annoying, totally manageable when you remember who's in the driver's seat. It's easy to label difficult people as villains in our story. Those who stand in our way, disrupt our flow, or drain our energy. And while that may feel true in the moment, the reality is deeper. Difficult people often arrive at the most inconvenient times, push all the wrong buttons, and force us into uncomfortable spaces. But if you step back, you'll realize that those same people can become unintentional mentors. The ones we admire or seek out, but the ones who teach us what not to tolerate, how to hold our ground, and where our own boundaries really lie. Think about it. Some of the most powerful lessons in self-respect, patience, and emotional control don't come from peaceful situations. They come from friction. From moments when you wanted to scream but chose silence, when you were tempted to quit but didn't. These difficult individuals may never offer you praise or support. They show you something just as valuable: who you are under pressure. And that kind of self-awareness, that's priceless. You may not like them. You might find yourself grateful for what they unknowingly taught you. When you view someone as an obstacle, your entire focus becomes getting past them fast. If you treat them as a teacher, even an unwilling one, you start to examine the situation differently. You ask, what am I learning from this interaction? What is this person revealing about my own triggers, my reactions, or my emotional boundaries? That shift in mindset is powerful. It moves you from a reactive state to a reflective one. And once you're reflective, you stop giving away your power so easily. Uninvited teachers challenge your growth because they don't come wrapped in kindness. They're not patient. They don't explain themselves. They force you to evolve, sometimes by pushing you so far out of your comfort zone that you have no choice but to level up. Whether it's learning how to speak up, how to disengage without guilt, or how to stay grounded when your ego wants to lash out, these are life skills you can't learn in a workshop or a book. You learn them through experience, through conflict, through fire. So the next time you find yourself dealing with someone who tests your limits, ask yourself, what lesson is this moment trying to teach me? It won't make the situation easier, but it will make it meaningful. Because once you stop seeing that person as a permanent barrier and start seeing them as part of your education, you take back control of the narrative. And control, after all, is where your power lives. There's a dangerous cycle that many of us, especially those who were raised to be polite, agreeable, or accommodating, fall into. We keep trying to win over people who have no intention of ever being satisfied. You bend, you twist, you compromise, not because you believe in what you're doing, because you're hoping that maybe, just maybe, this time they'll approve. But here's the truth: some people don't want to be pleased. They want control. And the more you give, the more they'll take. It's not about mutual respect. It's about seeing how far they can push you before you break. Kinds of people are experts at disguising criticism as advice, using compliments as manipulation, pretending to care about your growth when they're really just trying to reshape you into something that makes them feel bigger. It could be a boss who constantly moves the goalpost, a partner who only shows affection when you sacrifice your needs, a so-called friend who celebrates you only when you're smaller than them, emotionally, mentally, or even physically. If any of this sounds familiar, it's not in your head. You're not too sensitive. You're finally seeing clearly. Pleasing people who don't respect you doesn't earn their respect. It deepens their entitlement. More you mold yourself to their standards, the more they believe it's their right to define you. And before you know it, you're living someone else's version of your life, walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing yourself, losing touch with your own voice. That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And you weren't put on this earth to abandon yourself for the comfort of someone who thrives on discomforting others. The truth is, you don't owe anyone endless flexibility. Being adaptable is a strength, but not when it comes at the cost of your integrity. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to disappoint people who benefit from your silence. You're allowed to stop explaining yourself to people who refuse to understand you. That's not rudeness. That's maturity. That's choosing your sanity over their approval. And approval from the wrong people is the most expensive validation you'll ever chase. It costs you. So the next time you catch yourself over-explaining, over-delivering, or over-apologizing to someone who never reciprocates, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to earn basic decency from someone who doesn't even value it themselves? If the answer is yes, you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And eventually, even the best performers burn out. It's time to drop the act, reclaim your space, and stop performing for an audience that only claps when you shrink. There's a powerful shift that happens the moment you stop whispering your needs and start stating them unapologetically. That moment you decide you're no longer going to shrink, dilute, or sugarcoat just to be accepted. Owning your voice isn't just about speaking louder. It's about speaking honestly. It's about saying, this is who I am, this is what I need, and this is what I will no longer tolerate. And for many people, especially those taught to stay quiet to keep the peace, shift feels radical, but it's necessary. Biggest myths were sold, especially as women or anyone expected to play a supporting role, is that speaking up makes you difficult or aggressive. That saying no is selfish. That having standards makes you inflexible. But let me ask you this, since when did protecting your energy become a character flaw? Since when did self-respect become something to apologize for? Boundaries don't make you hard to work with, they make you clear. They tell the world how to treat you. And more importantly, they teach you how to treat yourself. It's not just about what you say, it's also about what you allow. Do you let people interrupt you? Do you keep giving to those who never give back? Do you explain yourself over and over to people who don't actually want to understand you? These aren't just habits. They're signs that you haven't claimed your space fully. But when you set a boundary, what you're really saying is, I value myself enough to protect my peace. That's not hostility, it's clarity. And clarity is powerful. Yes, people might push back. They might call you too much, cold, or ungrateful. But those are just noise from people who benefited from your silence. When you start owning your voice, you disrupt the dynamics that once served them. And guess what? That's not your problem to fix. Your job isn't to make people comfortable with your strength. Your job is to honor the truth of who you are, even if it unsettles those who preferred the quieter version of you. And let's talk about guilt, because it will show up. Always does in the beginning. You'll feel it when you decline that extra work you were never paid for. You'll feel it when you cancel a call that drains you. You'll feel it when you stop explaining decisions you've already made. But here's what I want you to remember. Guilt is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something different. And different is exactly what you need if you want a life that's yours, not one that's been negotiated away for approval. When you're faced with someone who thrives on conflict, it's tempting to fight fire with fire. You want to match their volume, their intensity, their energy. You want to win the argument, get the last word, and make sure they feel the sting of what they just threw at you. But here's the trap. The moment you meet their chaos with your own, you've handed them exactly what they wanted, control over your peace. And your peace is far too valuable to be collateral damage in someone else's drama. Let's be clear, clarity is not passivity. Doesn't mean you ignore what's wrong or let people walk all over you. Clarity means you choose how to respond instead of reacting out of pure emotion. It's staying centered when someone else wants to throw you off balance. It's saying, this is not acceptable, without screaming. It's walking away with dignity rather than staying and drowning in ego. That kind of response takes discipline, but it's the ultimate show of strength. Because anybody can yell, very few can stand still and speak truth without theatrics. Dramatic people feed off attention, escalation, and emotional reactions. It's how they feel powerful by pulling others into their spiral. But when you respond with calm, measured honesty, it confuses them. You don't play by their rules. You don't give them the high they're looking for. Instead, you show them something rarer: control, and that control is a boundary in itself. It says, you don't get to dictate the tone of this exchange. I do. That's where the real shift happens. Not in overpowering them, but in refusing to let them overpower you. This doesn't mean you won't feel angry, hurt, or exhausted. You will. You're human. But clarity doesn't come from denying your emotions. It comes from owning them, then deciding how much space you want to give them in your actions. You can be furious and still speak with precision. You can be disappointed and still act with integrity. Emotions are valid, but they don't have to be the drivers of your decisions. When you learn how to hold emotion and intention at the same time, you stop reacting like a flame and start responding like a force. So when the next storm hits, because it will, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what's the outcome I want here? Do I want to be right, or do I want to be effective? Do I want to win the moment or protect my long-term peace? Those questions change everything, because clarity isn't just a response, it's a strategy, and people who master it aren't just remembered for what they said, for how they stayed grounded when everyone else lost their footing. We're taught that strength means staying That resilience is about enduring the storm, proving your toughness, and sticking it out no matter how uncomfortable things get. But that's only half the story. Real power, unshakable, undeniable power, sometimes comes in the form of walking away, not because you're weak, not because you're giving up, because you finally realize that your energy is not an unlimited resource and not every battle deserves your presence. Walking away isn't about quitting. It's about choosing. It's about recognizing when the situation, the person, or the environment no longer aligns with your values or respects your worth. It could be a job that constantly undervalues your work, relationship that chips away at your confidence, or a friendship that only survives when you're playing small. We hold on because we fear what letting go will say about us. Here's the truth. Walking away doesn't say you failed. It says you've evolved. Some people only respect your boundaries when they come with distance. You could explain yourself 100 times, offer patience, grace, even compromise. But for those who only hear you when you're silent, walking away is the loudest statement you can make. And no, it doesn't need to be dramatic. You don't have to slam the door to prove a point. Sometimes the most elegant exits are the quietest, the kind where you simply stop showing up for what no longer serves you. There will always be people who question your choice. They'll say you're overreacting, being emotional, or burning bridges. Let them, because what they call emotional, is intuitive. What they call dramatic, is decisive. You don't owe anyone a seat at your table just because they've always been there. History is not a reason to stay where you are no longer respected, safe, or seen. And walking away doesn't erase your value. It protects it. And yes, it's scary. There's uncertainty in leaving something familiar, even if it's toxic. The cost of staying in places that diminish you is far higher than the fear of the unknown. You'll never regret protecting your peace. You'll never regret choosing yourself. Real regret only comes when you realize how long you stayed after the lesson had already been learned. So the next time your spirit feels restless, listen. That's not weakness talking. That's your power asking for space to breathe. We talk a lot about time as a limited resource, but we forget that energy is just as valuable and often even more fragile. You can get time back with better planning. You can't always get your energy back once it's drained by toxic conversations, unnecessary drama, or emotional overextension. Your energy is a currency, and the way you spend it determines the kind of life you build. The more you give it away to things that don't matter or people who don't value it, the less you have left for the things that do. Peace doesn't mean your life is quiet or perfect. It means you've gotten intentional about what deserves your attention. It means choosing not to participate in every argument, not to carry emotional weight that doesn't belong to you, and not to constantly perform for the sake of appearances. Protecting your peace is the moment you stop being available to chaos just because you were raised to be nice, cooperative, or accommodating. It's not coldness. It's clarity. And clarity is a form of power most people aren't taught to claim. You don't owe anyone constant access to your mind, your emotions, or your presence, especially if that access comes with a cost. You're not being rude when you stop picking up calls that drain you. You're not being dramatic when you distance yourself from people who gossip, gaslight, or guilt trip you. You're being responsible with your energy, just like you wouldn't hand out money to anyone who asked. You shouldn't hand out emotional access without checking the cost, because once you go broke emotionally, you start making desperate choices, and desperate choices rarely protect your future. Difficult people often test your peace by forcing you into reaction mode. They bait you with comments, push your buttons, or keep you in cycles of tension just to pull your focus. And the truth is, they win when they get your energy, not your silence, not your withdrawal, not even your disagreement. They win when you stop creating, stop growing, stop focusing on yourself just to keep explaining yourself to them. That's the trap, and the only way out is not to out-argue them, it's to out-focus them. So if you ever feel guilty for protecting your peace, remember this. You are not obligated to deplete yourself for anyone's comfort. Your energy is the fuel for your future. It drives your ambition, your creativity, your relationships, your purpose. If you give it all away to noise, you'll have nothing left for your voice. And your voice, when protected, is the most powerful tool you'll ever own. In a world where opinions fly faster than truth and perception often outweighs reality, staying grounded in who you are is not just a personal choice, it's a survival skill. Difficult people will always try to project their insecurities onto you. They'll label your confidence as arrogance, your assertiveness as attitude, your clarity as coldness. And if you're not deeply rooted in your identity, you'll start shrinking yourself to fit their comfort. But here's the thing, who you are is not up for debate. It's not a negotiation, and it's certainly not a democracy. Every time you adjust yourself to make someone else feel more secure in their own skin, you chip away at your own foundation, and the people who benefit from your self-doubt will never encourage your growth. Why would they? Your uncertainty gives them power. That's why it's so important to hold your center, especially when it feels like the world is pulling at you from every angle. Because the moment you let someone redefine you, you give them the pen to rewrite your story. And no one deserves that pen but you. Being rooted doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow from within, not from the expectations of others. You can evolve without erasing yourself. You can learn without losing your voice. It's a balance that most people don't talk about, how to be open and unshakable at the same time. But when you know who you are, your values, your boundaries, your worth, then criticism doesn't destroy you, praise doesn't blind you, and people's opinions stop dictating your direction. There will always be someone who tries to tell you that you're too much, too loud, too bold, too ambitious. Let them talk. Their words only matter if you make them louder than your own. You don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to understand yourself, because when you're deeply connected to your identity, no one can manipulate you into playing a smaller role in your own life. Difficult people lose their grip the moment you stop looking to them for reflection and start relying on your own mirror. Your job isn't to prove your worth to people who never saw it in the first place. Your job is to own it fiercely, fully, without flinching. When you stay rooted in who you are, through the noise, the pressure, the misunderstanding, you don't just protect your peace, you protect your purpose. And nothing is more powerful than a person who knows who they are and refuses to be edited.